The Philippines has always been affected by hazards, whether natural or human-induced, making it one of the world's most disaster-prone countries. These disasters have devastated people's lives and livelihood, as well as hard-earned community development gains. To help the people prepare before disaster strikes, lessen disaster impacts, and ensure that communities can recover quickly and have less reliance on outside aid, the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, with funding support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, is investing on a project entitled Strengthening Capacity of Government and Local Humanitarian Organizations in Preparedness and Response in Asia. The goal of the project is to improve the emergency preparedness to be able to respond to disasters in Asia by strengthening the interface between the government and local humanitarian organizations and enhancing their technical capacity to better engage in humanitarian framework. And this is done by providing institutions, partnerships, knowledge resources, training, and networking opportunities. The strategy adopted is to develop the national preparedness partnerships of local humanitarian organizations as an effort to create the Asian Preparedness Partnership in the Asia region. Implemented in 6 countries, namely the Philippines, Cambodia, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, the first major activity of the project is to conduct a baseline study with the following objectives. On August 15, 2017, about 50 disaster risk reduction practitioners from various regions of the country were convened in Manila to validate the initial results of the baseline study. The Center for Disaster Preparedness, the lead organization for this initiative, jointly with Kapwa Kumahalko Foundation and the Office of Civil Defense, were the organizers of the event. Ms. Lorraine de la Cruz, Executive Director of CDP, gave the opening remarks. Dr. Mel Capistrano, Country Manager for ADPC Philippines, then gave the overview of the project. He opened with a short icebreaker to illustrate the importance of coordination. Ms. Ina Barun of the Center for Disaster Preparedness, lead coordinator of the assessment project, gave the background of the study. She discussed the research objectives and the criteria for choosing target areas. Ms. Ina mentioned that there are about 100 to 150 target respondents spread across the sectors of government and civil defense, local humanitarian organizations, NGOs, the academe, media, private practitioners, national networks. Data collection occurred from July 31 to August 11, with CDP being assisted by existing partner organizations who have worked as enumerators. The tools used in the study were structured interviews, questionnaires, key informant interviews, and focus group discussions. Dr. Noel Huban, The research consultant presented the initial findings for local humanitarian organizations, international humanitarian organizations, governments, as well as private sector and the media. Highlights of the research findings include the following. The local humanitarian organizations are registered mostly with the government, duly accredited, and have an article of association or incorporation, and most have concrete organizational structures with regard to emergency response and have documented mission and vision. Moreover, most local humanitarian organizations have sufficient manpower to perform emergency response. Areas for improvement of capacity include training for staff are usually provided by government, non-government organizations, both local and international. Staff capacity building needs include the following. The International Humanitarian Organization response activities include protection, food security, education, water, sanitation, hygiene, nutrition, emergency shelter, camp coordination management, and health. They have knowledge products through publication, archiving policy, database for emergency response that can be shared. In terms of accountability and quality assurance, they reported having complaint response and redress mechanisms as well as social audit mechanisms. For government organizations, most of the respondents have institutional and legal framework structures deriving their mandates from legislation. Majority of respondents from the government reported conducting regular drills at least once a year and conducting regular training for operations. Operational and administrative policies are approved and supported by documents. However, there is no risk insurance or compensation for working in hazardous areas. Linkages with NGOs and other government agencies are present and known. The level of coordination is at least above average during pre-disaster and response phase. Most government respondents reported the presence of systems of knowledge management. There is wide variation in allocation of annual budget for emergency response activities. Financial management systems are in place as well as monitoring and evaluation. For the private sector as well as media, most organizations that responded did not have strategic emergency plans, but most organizations have institutional policies for emergency response. All organizations that responded distributed food as part of emergency response activities. The level of coordination with the government and humanitarian clusters is rated at least above average. Insurance coverage, helping the community and institutional mandate are some of the reasons given by respondents for practicing emergency response. Planning for emergency response activities for private sector and media include coordination with NGOs and other agencies, examining needs of the community, and annual planning. Most of the respondents are involved in fundraising for emergency response. After the presentation of initial results, the floor was open for questions.
So number of staff, tapos male at saka female at saka others. Kasi tinanong number of staff, hindi gender. So yung staff na sinabi nila, yung regular staff nila or yung OGT at saka volunteers po. Regular sa office nila, kung may female, nilagay doon nila. Tapos yung male, tapos yung mga OGT po, dito sa others nila nilagay.
Yung sinasabi nating funds, bakit merong ilang percent to 100%?
Kung walang declaration ng calamity, talagang yung 30% nare-reserve yun, quick response fund. So, hindi mo talaga masabi na 100% utilization.
Opo.
Sa succeeding year po yun, pwede yun siya i-reprogram.
Based on findings of the baseline data, Ms. Mayforth Luneta led the participants in the validation session for purposes of identifying specific issues confronted on the ground in local communities. At the same time, they pinpointed areas for capacity building and allowing knowledge exchange and enhancement. She divided the participants into 4 smaller groups, namely each group discussed enthusiastically the opportunities and issues related to their assigned themes and presented their respective outputs. Highlights of the presentation includes the following. The participants also share the need to uphold and maintain the ecosystem resilience as non-negotiable in its agenda and action plans. Likewise, the participants felt strongly about the opportunity in the context of the Philippines to pilot collaborative undertakings for humanitarian preparedness for response and recovery regarding the ongoing conflict in Marawi in southern Philippines. The Center for Disaster Preparedness, Kapwa Kumalco Foundation, and the Office of Civil Defense are thankful to the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center for sending Mr. Mantapa from Nepal to present and share with the participants the results of the baseline assessment conducted from their country under the same project. In summary, the localization agenda offers an opportunity for various stakeholders at the country level to scale up and scale across their capacities to better serve the affected population and exercise leadership in various humanitarian action, whether natural or human-induced hazards. The following are the areas for investment and enhancement. For the next step, Dr. Mel Capistrano discussed how they could move forward with the project. He said the data will be presented at a regional conference spearheaded by ADPC at the end of August. Ms. Myra Beth Alicias led the commitment setting. She said that the OCD would continue giving full support to the project. Dr. Orlando Mercado, president of Kapwa Kumalco Foundation, gave a brief inspirational message during the closing ceremony.
The world has changed also profoundly
So much so that the disasters that we face are not only almost unimaginable, they're very difficult to categorize. So our responses are not easy to categorize. Kaya napaka-importante para sa atin na magbukas ng ating isipan. The one-day event was a fun-filled learning experience among the facilitators and participants as they collectively discussed challenges and opportunities in improving emergency response systems of concerned disaster management agencies and the capacities of disaster management practitioners in the Philippines.